I never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Fine.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. It is a hump day, so if you know somebody named Mike, go up to him sometime today and say, Mike, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Mike, guess what day it is? Hump day. I know everybody remembers that commercial. But anyway, since it is a hump day Wednesday, it is time for another weekly top 10 countdown. And this week's top 10 countdown comes to us courtesy of the comment section. I believe it came in last Wednesday. Somebody was commenting on last week's top 10 countdown, and when they did, they made a suggestion for this week's top 10 countdown, and it is top 10 best all-time bad guys in wrestling, or as the commenter left in the comment section, top 10 best heels of all time in wrestling. That used to be a term that you only heard if you were in the wrestling business, but nowadays, because of all the different radio shows and magazines and TV shows and behind the scenes stuff, pretty much everybody says it, but it used to be one of those words that you only heard if you were involved in the business. But again, it is top 10 best heels of all time. I think 9 of the 10, everybody's going to know pretty easily. But there is one that I'm going way back on. But if you've never heard of the guy, you get on YouTube and go back and watch his stuff. And he was hated, but he was also hated outside of the ring, because rumor is that he was a world-class jerk. We'll talk about him when we get there. In the meantime, let's go ahead and get started. Number 10, JBL. Now, of course, JBL was around for a long time, and he used many different characters, such as Justin Hawk Bradshaw, and of course, he also teamed with Farouk with the Acolytes, later on the APA. But when he was the snobbish rich man that came out with the limo with the bullhorns sticking out of it, and he wore that cowboy hat, and he had that long world championship reign, he was hated, but he was good. Number 9, Ted DiBiase. Now, of course, Ted DiBiase was around for a long time. Most people only know him from his, what was then the WWF, when him and Irwin R. Shyster had that long tag team called Money Incorporated, and Ted DiBiase started saying everybody has a price, and he had that sinister laugh, but he was actually around for many years. And the majority of his career, he was a bad guy, and he was good at it everywhere he went. Number 8 was the Macho King, Randy Savage. Now, of course, Randy Savage was one of those guys that was a good guy for a long time and was a bad guy for a long time. But when he had Sensational Sherry and he was the Macho King, he was absolutely, completely, 100% hated for a long time. Number 7, Roddy Piper. And Roddy Piper, along with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, probably the two most known wrestlers of all time to never win a major world championship. They both had several mid-card titles, but never had a world title. But Roddy Piper was honestly, really, truly the first wrestler that put the entertainment into wrestling. Because for the most part, before Roddy Piper came along, wrestlers didn't talk. And if they did, it was a backstage promo or a promo right outside the ring, either before or after their match. And it might last, 45 seconds, maybe a minute. But Roddy Piper came along and started having Piper's Pit. And he was so good at that. And nowadays, almost everybody that's good, no matter what promotion you watch, they're known for their talking as much as their wrestling. But before Roddy Piper, you just didn't see that. Number 6, The Miz. Now, what makes The Miz so good is outside of the ring, he's probably the nicest person that you'll ever come in contact with. And I have, over the years, read numerous articles from people that have met The Miz, either on the record or off the record, whether there's cameras around or not, and they say he is the most polite, nicest person you'll ever meet. And you can watch the TV show he does with his wife, and even on that show, you can tell how nice he is. And most of the time, that hurts your character, because this day and time, with all these reality shows we have and things like that, if people see how you really are, they look at you differently in the ring. And if you play bad outside the ring and inside the ring, they'll boo you. But if you play bad inside the ring, but outside the ring, you're totally nice, a lot of people have a hard time booing you because they see how you really are, so they can't take the character serious. But The Miz is the nicest person in the world. But when he comes out, as soon as his music hits, he gets booed out of the building. So when that happens, that tells you how good you are at what you do, that you can show your true colors outside the ring, then get in the ring and still be completely hated. Again, 10 through 6, JBL, Ted DiBiase, Randy Savage, Roddy Piper, and The Miz. And this is the top 10 best heels of all time in professional wrestling. Number 5 is the one I'm going way back on. And that was Dick Slater, better known as Dirty Dick Slater. And of course, that was before my time. But I've watched several videos about him, and they say that what you saw on TV was not a gimmick. That man was just a complete, total douchebag outside of the ring. So it helped him be a good heel, because it wasn't an act. That was who he was. Number 4, Bully Ray. Now, of course, when I say Bully Ray, I think about him during the glory days of what was at the time still called TNA, when he had lost so much weight from being Bubba Ray. When he became Bully Ray, he was hated, but he was so good at it. And I was glad, because after all his years of teaming up with Devon, we never got to see Bully Ray be a singles wrestler. But when he did it, he was good at it. And then number 3 was Big Papa Pump, Scott Steiner. Now, of course, most of his career, he teamed with his brother, and that wasn't a storyline. Rick actually is his brother. They're legit brothers. They teamed together as the Steiner brothers for a long time and won multiple tag team championships. But when Scott turned on Rick and dyed his goatee blonde and dyed his hair blonde and started calling himself Big Papa Pump, and he carried around that lead pipe, he had a female valet whose name I believe was Medeja, and he would always come out and say, Big Papa Pump is your hookup. Holler if you hear me. And you always heard that siren go off. And that's been, for the most part, about 25 years ago. And you can still to this day get on YouTube and just watch some of the promos he did back then. And people tried to climb the barricade. They threw stuff at him. They threatened to kill him. And when that happens, you're doing your job really well. If you play a bad guy in wrestling and you don't have at least one fan try to climb the barricade to get to you, you're not very good. But Scott was, and a lot of the promos that you can find on YouTube, but you have to find on YouTube because some of them were so dirty that they couldn't air them on TV. All you heard was a bunch of beeps because of how bad he was. But he was so good at it. Number 2, Shawn Michaels. And just like Randy Savage, Shawn Michaels had a long career as a bad guy and a long career as a good guy. But in the mid-90s, when he first went big as a singles wrestler, because remember, he had Marty Jannetty for a while, and they were the Rockers. But when he first broke away from Marty and had his first long singles run before the broken neck, and he was the bad guy, he was good. And, of course, the best heel of all time, shouldn't be no questions about it, no questions asked, Ric Flair. So that is the top 10 best heels of all time. And then a few honorable mentions. A couple of them are just too young to put on the list, and that's Dominic Mysterio and Austin Theory. If I came back and did this same top 10 2 years from now, and both those guys were still being heels, I'd probably put them on the list and knock 2 guys off the list. But to me, they just haven't been doing it long enough yet to say they're one of the best all time to do it. And Chris Jericho is a good heel, but I just don't think he's top 10. And then CM Punk, I left off the list because if you are smart and you watch wrestling, there's a difference in somebody booing you because of your character and somebody booing you because of who you are. I think a lot of the times when CM Punk's playing a heel, he's not getting booed because of the character. He's getting booed because he's a complete douchebag outside of the wrestling ring. And there's a difference in go away boos and dang, you're good at your job, so I'm booing you boos. And I think a lot of CM Punk's is dang, you're a jerk, get off my TV screen. And there is a difference. And then the last guy that I left off the list, nothing he's done wrong, but that's Randy Orton. Because Randy Orton has always said he prefers being a bad guy. But just about every time he turns bad and starts getting a push as a good bad guy, they'll turn him good. So we really don't know how good of a heel he would be because they never actually let him do it for a long period of time. And I think a lot of it is just the fact that he's such a good wrestler. People have a hard time of booing him because they want to see him wrestle. But if you recall just a couple of years ago when he was with Bray Wyatt for that short period of time, he actually caught Bray Wyatt's house on fire. And that was because they were trying to turn Randy Orton into a hated guy because catching somebody's house on fire is a criminal offense. He's committing arson, but people like Randy Orton so much, they cheered him for it. So, we'll never know where the direction of that storyline was supposed to go because it was supposed to be Bray's the good guy, Randy's the bad guy, so Randy commits arson and sets Bray's house on fire, and he gets cheered for it. But that is my opinion of the top 10 best heels of all time. Any thoughts on it? As always, feel free to let me know. Homes for Our Troops is a publicly funded 501c nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans. Since the 2004 inception, nearly 90 cents of every dollar spent has gone directly to our program services for veterans. Visit at hfotusa.org. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. What did the llama say to his date? Want to go on a picnic? I'll pack a lunch. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.